Cool. Welcome everybody to the first work group meeting of 2021. I hope everybody had a nice break and a little bit of time off and are recharged and ready to make 2021 awesome. So I've got some demo and I've got a bunch of stuff to talk about today. I posted a link to the meeting notes in the chat. If anybody needs again, I can post it again, but it's the same notes doc that we've been using. So just add yourself to the top. If there's anything that you'd like to talk about on the, just add yourself to the agenda. And I'm sorry, I have a camera on one side and the incoming video on the other, so I am looking at you guys. Okay, so first thing. So a couple weeks ago, Luigi was kind enough to volunteer to help kind of get I don't know what we're going to call it, a POC or an MVP or just a V like 0.9 of a dashboard out. So I tried to absorb a lot of the comments in the different docs and requirements specs and all of this. And one of the realizations that I had was it would be better to get something out than getting the perfect thing out a very long time from now. So I feel like we weren't making a ton of progress, or I wasn't making a ton of progress on the implementation. It just got too complex, and we had a short meeting. We didn't really have quorum, but a comment came up in, I think it was early November, which was basically like, this is way too complicated. Can we just like throw Grafana on a database and call it a day? And that got me thinking, and that wasn't a terrible idea. So that's the demo I'm going to show. So this is Grafana on a VM running, well, a couple different things. So let me do the demo-y thing, and then I'll explain what you're actually seeing. This is actually wrong. Let's just fix that. Okay, so these cards down here come from the David, your stuff, the best practices badge data. These things over here come from the scorecard, Dan, your stuff, the scorecard metrics. The project overview, I believe, comes from the best practices. Although some of these links down here are generated dynamically. Project releases over time come from the libraries.io API, which gives a list of versions and dates, so you can graph it. Months since last release and average months between releases comes from GitHub, I believe. No, this libraries.io. Contributors within the past 90 days is broken on this one, but it should say, the number of distinct contributors to the Git repo. So it does a clone and then it parses the log looking for this. And then percentage of issues open. This is the last 100 issues that were created. How many of them are currently open? And then what's the average duration between open and closed for those 100? So these are not intended to be perfect metrics, because no metrics are perfect, but they're intended to give something. And then I think what I'm hoping is that we have a fruitful, argument about like, well, 90 days is a terrible number, and a year is like just barely enough, but which really should be like 1 year and 3 years, or like average issue duration doesn't mean anything. It really should be this other thing. But at least we have something to like point at and laugh at and say that it should be this other thing instead. These things on the bottom, there's a job that goes out and gathers everything from OpenSSF, from the best practices and all of the public data that the Scorecard project creates, which is awesome. So thank you for both of you for having those kind of APIs and data available. It's a lot easier than well, the best practice. I wouldn't have any other way of doing it, but the scorecard metrics, it's a little painful in terms of API limits to generate these things ourselves. So what I have is, if you were to look at like my favorite left pad, left pad comes in and more data, coming in, but left pad, is it's been deprecated since I think 2018, so we expect to see numbers like this. There is no badge stuff. I ran the scorecard independently on it, and some of them popped up yes, and most no. So it has this, but it has this other section, security reviews, which I want to talk about in a minute. Are there any questions about the demo so far? I'm going to get a little bit more into the architecture and then go to the security reviews and then have more of a holistic discussion on like, is this are we going down the right road? David, you're on mute.
Thank you. The 2020 phrase is going to be 2021 is also, I see. Thank you. I would definitely love to have all the arguments with the metrics. I think there are better. I'm not very excited about release versus say some number of commits or something, but I love this overall approach of getting something up, and then and then we can have reasonable, interesting arguments about what to put there. Right. So yep. I'm actually very excited. I think this looks really, really promising. I am curious where you got the security reviews text there.
Give me about 10 minutes and all your questions will be answered.
Yeah, so I'll just quickly put a peg in the for the health and so on. The length of time between releases, different projects have very different views on that. But I think if you produce at least how many commits per month, that at least gives in particular there are no commits this month tells me something very, very different, even if there hasn't been a release in a year.
True. I think maybe we need both, because from a consumer, I don't consume commits, I only consume a release. So if I know that the last, like you do releases every 3 years and you just had one 3 months ago, I should know not to expect another release for another couple of years. But yeah, I agree that the number of commits is important. And what I was hoping for is that some of these guys on the bottom are proxies for that kind of information. So I haven't looked into precisely what what would it take to go from an X to a check on contributors. But I would imagine it would be something along those lines, like have had more than X contributors in the past T.
Well, for some of these, do you need an X? Can you give it a score or a number?
Correct. I tried to make these ones on the bottom all binary, aside from these guys over here. So these are either some of these have partial because you have partial in some of your data. So, right. or partially met or something like that.
Yeah, I suspect you're gonna, if you can make it binary, that's awesome. I suspect you're not gonna get away with it.
Right. Which is this whole thing. And the other nice thing is that each of these can be links out to other more lower level dashboards that have more of the raw information.
Right.
And I'm just curious on the OpenSSF scorecard metrics. Are those? I didn't remember, but it's been a couple of weeks since I looked at the scorecard. Is the scorecard actually pulling the number of contributors and that kind of stuff? I didn't think that was part of their test.
There's two relevant things here. There's a one check to try to determine whether or not the project is active, and that one has a couple different things it looks at, like whether anything has happened in the last 90 days or something like that. And then there's another one that tries to make sure there's at least more than one contributor. So we don't care about the actual number as long as it's greater than one, I think.
Okay, so there's some overlap in these between the best practices and the scorecard, I think. Are you doing similar kinds of, does the best practices have I know best practices might be self-reported, but I think you also are covering code review, CI tests.
Yeah, so I had a question regarding. Oh, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, yes. Although there's some challenges and differences. So, for example, for the multiple contributors, what we want is multiple contributors from different organizations. Whereas with the number of contributors, it's just straight, are there more than one? And so,
right. No, for us, it actually is organizations for the scorecards too. We copied that. Now I remember.
Yeah, although I am a little skeptical of how well you'll be able to do that, because two people can have two different email addresses from two different places, and they're actually at the same company. Happens all the time.
It uses the GitHub organization field where people can kind of self-identify what organization they're with, not the email address. But yeah, there are still challenges there too. Like people type Google or Google Inc. and those show up as like two different things sometimes.
I had a question regarding the OpenSSF batch. So this is filled out through a form, right? Like, since we cannot validate maybe these metrics, does it make sense to show it here rather than just the batch? Because ideally, we would want to validate the metrics, right? Let's say somebody says two-factor authentication is enabled. Like, do we validate all these metrics?
We don't validate all of them. We validate, and of course, let's step back. What do you mean by validate? Okay, some of them are automatically checked and they are verified as being correct, or some of them are at least verified as being consistent with other data. Well, no, some data is self-reported, some is not. There's the problem.
Yes. So
whereas so some data is self-reported, some is validated in terms of an automatic check, and some is validated for at least consistency. In other words, yes, that is, there are reasons to believe that's true. There is also the challenge if someone lies. It's all public, so it can be questioned and, if necessary, overridden. We've done that in several cases where somebody makes false claims and it's reported and it's either fixed or the deleted and the user is removed if we have to do that.
Is there a periodic, like, hey, is this still true?
We have talked about that many times. There's a little bit of that, but we'd like to do more in the future.
Okay.
But to be honest, right now it's a matter of priority. Yeah. Right now we've been more focused on just getting people to do things at all, because that's the higher risk. People backsliding a little bit is not ideal. But for a lot of these things, once you set up things like CI pipelines, your pipeline's going to enforce it on yourself, and you're doing it. So right. We're way more worried about the projects that aren't even trying.
Cool. Any other?
Yeah, I'll just say I agree with David. It's it's great to have something here, and we can keep refining. But it's a starting point. So thanks for your work.
I have a next steps question, which is you currently have a Docker image. That's great. I would love to see metrics.openssf.org.
Nice. Nice. Thank you.
And there it is.
Yeah.
So actually, sorry. There it is, huh?
The README that's on the site is, I did not update that. That points to the old thing. It is currently well, I'll talk about the architecture, I guess.
Okay.
Now, yeah. Architecture was meant to be super simple. There is one database and there is one table, and it's called metrics. And the columns are like, it's package URL, you get a key, and you get a value. And you get some other properties where it's not, where it doesn't quite work. So these things look like, and it's just it's vanilla Postgres, nothing special. So core infrastructure badge thing, the key is like, where it came from, and the license is MIT. And that's it. then back here, when I'm curious as to like, well, what does this mean? It just means that the query is just for the given package URL, what's the value of the key? And then there's some mashing to keep Grafana happy, but it's nothing special there. So there's no like weird complex backend whatchamabobs to kind of keep things going. You just have a refresh job. And the refresh job is the thing that is here now. And basically that comes down to, oops, not that one. A couple different scripts. One of them is like, check the scorecard. And the scorecard means that either I'm going to grab the latest JSON with everything in it and parse them all, or if you give me just one, I will go there and I will try to find the GitHub repo and then run the scorecard thing myself on it. Actually, that one it does run in a container. That was just
Michael. How?
Go ahead, Luigi.
I have a question. How you handled the GitHub limits? Because when I was written the code, I have some troubles with the GitHub API limits because, of course, to test the code, I need to run it several times, and of course, after some attempts, I was blocked by GitHub.
Yeah. I don't have a good answer for that. I don't think, well, I think we should have a talk with GitHub to see what are the chances of getting a higher API limit. I know other orgs do, they have a pool of tokens, which kind of is not probably the right thing to do either. We could run it slowly. We could, but like the scorecard itself takes, I mean, I've seen it take over 1,000 out of the 5,000 API points.
Not really. I think it just takes around less than 100. So you can do like around 50 to 100 repos. But here is the thing. We are doing kind of a hack to switch between tokens. So I think that's like a hack around the GitHub token limits. Like you can have multiple tokens and you keep switching between them. But it has been a crazy pain. Like we need to solve that thing. Yeah. So, yeah.
Actually, for that, because what I know, so when I was, as I was doing other things with the GitHub token, I realized that if I just switched over and learned GraphQL better, I could get, going down from hundreds to like 1 token point, where it's just significantly. And I noticed that there was some code in the scorecard that does GraphQL. But I wonder if the rest of it might make that a lot more efficient.
Yeah, there's probably some optimizations that can be done. I know like the GraphQL API rate limiting changes completely. Like it's not 1 token per request. They have some way where like it's smart enough to charge you based on how big the query is. So there probably is some tweaking that could be done. But yeah, when I first looked at it, it was hard to actually predict just because of like the math.
Okay. There's harder to design the checks as well. Like, so right now the checks are all different. Like if you use GraphQL, you have to combine all the queries together and combine the checks. So it makes the refactoring and other stuff hard. So we can look into it, but it's hard.
Cool.
Yeah, Michael, there's another approach you can take, which is radically different. Hold up. And that is something more like what the best practices badge does, which is instead of trying to do a batch, and to be fair, the badge really couldn't do what you're doing right now anyway. But you could make it so that people log in and use their tokens because they're interested. I really want to know about Project X. Well, Project X isn't on the list that you currently do on a normal cycle. Fine. You log in, we'll use your token, we'll give you answers. And oh, by the way, we'll store that data in the database with a date, and then everybody else can get that data.
I think that totally makes sense, especially if we are, I guess if it's a real OAuth app thing where we are doing the validation on our end using their token that they have just given us, or with the OAuth dance gotten us access to, rather than they actually run any code, because I would be concerned with just what that would imply.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that last.
I wouldn't want to just give out the code and say, hey, here, run this code yourself on your desktop against your thing and submit the data to us.
Oh, no. I'm saying, metrics.openssf.org, you show up. Oh, you want to look at this other project? Give me the URL of the project. You log in, give me the URL of the project, run the scorecard, ask CI best practices, whatever else, and then you get the data, you show the user results, and then you store it with a date. I think with that model, though, you got to make sure you store the date of the analysis and show that, because it might, the next person who wants to know, it might be okay with month-old data, but but
everything
you
gets
should tell them it's month-old
anyway.
data.
Not sure if this is a good time to make this, but I'll say it, and then we can store it if we need to. So there's a scenario that I'm very interested in, which is the gating of the use of open source software based on security parameters. So I'm interested in, there's a project that I've been working a bunch with, which is the Intoto project. And they focus on, secure supply chain framework. I think it would be very interesting if we could have the results from this come out in Toto link format and be signed, and also identify, like who ran the check, and then we could, use that also for companies who want to validate. They can validate against that. So, so automate and validate.
Yeah, and again, I think it'd be key to make sure we include date of analysis.
Right.
Export.
Right.
For all the same reasons.
Yeah. Yep.
I have some doubts about this strategy about Github token limits, because of course the user can run using their token 1, 2, 3 scans, but they can use with many tools in some hours, because the limits block you for 1 hour or more. I don't know, and so I don't know if it is the best user experience if you can, if you want to compare different tool, and so you want to run the dashboard in real time, different times. In addition, I think that Scorecard works only with GitHub, and it is okay. But if a project is on GitLab, we cannot use it. So I don't know, or maybe I'm wrong. But when I have tested the Scorecard with GitLab, I cannot run it. But maybe I can. Maybe I am wrong something. So I don't know. But
yeah, Dan should comment, but I think they started with GitHub, but are interested in expanding to other SCMs, not SCMs, but SCMs.
Other forces. Yep.
Sorry.
Dan, do you want to?
Yeah, that's you summed it up correctly. It's just a matter of doing the work to query the GitLab APIs.
Yeah, and for my end of it, wherever I can, I go to libraries.io, which gets me whatever. There's like 12 or 15 different ecosystems. So I'm relatively agnostic to it. I just won't have. I'll have missing data here for the places where I'm not querying yet. And a lot of these say no data here in the middle because I haven't run the script because of the API limits, and there's no sense in burning CPU time on a proof of concept for all these. Okay. I did want to get to the security reviews part quickly, unless anybody has anything burning that they need to talk about right this second. Okay.
Just one more thought. Yeah. Sorry. I wonder if we could get GitHub to provide data, so the kinds of data that we're interested for security in a kind of a cold storage or something, so that we wouldn't have to. I don't know, it just seems like something to talk to them about. So we wouldn't have to use their API to query. Maybe they've got some other place where we can go, get relatively fresh data across a bunch of projects. So
that would be, particularly I think because, in anything, there's this like hockey tail graph of like projects that anybody has ever used. So if you just focus to the things that like we would probably care about anyway, it's not be a very small portion of the total number of GitHub projects. That'd be interesting to just talk to Maya about.
Right.
Are you talking about like BigQuery?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how it would look. I'm just trying to come up with, some way where, another way where we could get around their API limits. And I thought perhaps that way might be having some data stored on the side that's, so that we're not querying against their, their main databases.
So Abhishek actually found, and actually I think somebody might have sent it to Abhishek, but there's this old project called Github Torrent. I don't know if anybody here is aware of that.
Yeah, that is a great resource, but except it's dead.
Yeah, that's the problem. It seems like Microsoft was sponsoring it at some point. There was only like one maintainer of it, but that's basically what it did. People were kind of donating access tokens to it, and they were scraping and sticking things into offline cold storage and then making them available to researchers.
Why did it die? Were there, Michael, do you know what the data wasn't solid, or there wasn't resourcing, or the person who was leading the project decided to do something else?
Yeah, I never got the answer on exactly what happened with it. The person responded to emails. We sent a couple questions, but yeah, it seems like they just stopped running the thing that they were running, and I don't know why. Microsoft's listed as a sponsor there. I don't know who from Microsoft was helping out with it though.
I think I could talk to Stormy Peters about that. I think she would.
Yeah,
unless Michael does
and Jeff Wilcox were both involved. So
okay,
they at least know the answers, whether or not they were. I don't think they were doing the work, but
right.
Yeah, but the data sets. Yeah, I mean this is.
Yeah, they were publishing whole MySQL backups you could download, and then also like interactive access to it. And I think somebody even had a mirror going into BigQuery at some point too, but it hasn't been updated in about a year, or I guess a year and a half now.
Yeah, as far as I know, BigQuery still exists, but I mean, it's not. I don't think that's free at all. As you get bigger, you get charged for it. So I don't think that's really going to be a help for scale in this kind of thing. If you want the general public to be able to query to it.
No, but if we could query to it and somehow figure out the billing part of that, that might be more efficient if it's
Right.
Yeah, I could take care of the BigQuery costs on the Google side if we could get the data in there and get that fresh.
Mm-hmm.
So let's add that as another.
I'm a big fan to distribute the cost out to the person who wants the answer. So yeah, we'll use your token if you want the answer.
Yeah, it just makes it a little harder for someone to query. There's an extra step, like you have to provide your token, but anyway.
Also, it gets slower when you add more checks. So right now it takes around 15 to 20 seconds, and we keep adding more checks. So it won't be a real-time experience to get that information.
To get which information?
Like all the metrics, right? So right now we have like 10 checks, right? And it takes around, let's say, 15 to 20 seconds. So if someone goes to a web page, it will take some time. So it won't look like real-time data is fast enough.
You know, I usually don't make decisions to use some piece of software in 15 seconds. So,
Right.
so I figure I can wait 15 seconds for somebody else to work hard to get the answer for me. I might even be willing to wait several minutes.
You're so patient.
It's a virtue. At least that's what I keep telling myself.
And also,
Well, hey, I
like,
mean, these are all. I'd love to hear your. These are all things we can. I mean, you know, I'm noting them, and it's good for discussion. But I'm interested to go on, Michael, and have you talk about the.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I guess OSSC, the GitHub coalition started, one of the drivers, at least for me in this, was so part of what my team does at Microsoft is security reviews of open source. So we look at a thing and we give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. We use tools, we do code review, we do all sorts of stuff. And so when we give it a thumbs down, that's usually either because it's just an inherently non-secure thing. It's like its entire purpose is implementing MD5, so we're not going to approve that. In other cases, is a vulnerability, in which case we take it through that process and get it fixed. And in a lot of cases, it's fine. And when it's fine, we give it a thumbs up, which is, I think, a little bit different than what other things, existing processes are out there. Because I've never really seen a good thumbs up on security. Like someone has actually looked at it with their eyeballs and said, this looks fine. That's part one. Part two is that we've done, hundreds and hundreds of these over the past couple of years, and we're just kind of sitting on the data. And if any of your organizations are doing anything similar, we're probably looking at the same thing, which means that we are collectively wasting like 90% of our effort. Wouldn't it be great if there was a community resource that we could all publish to and consume from and get interesting data, not 0 days. So this is not a 0-day trading club, but interesting security data about projects that aren't coming from the projects themselves. So like Apache has a security page and Mongo has a security page, and those are great. But those are also the, self-attested, like I am secure because I say I'm secure. For the big projects, there's trust there, and that's fine. For the smaller projects, they don't have those things anyway. And wouldn't it be great to have, just information that someone has looked at LeftPad and said, you know what, looks fine. And so that was kind of one of the things that drew me to OSSC was this, and I've been hoping to get this out. And so I'd like to kind of start moving on this. And basically, so what this is it's meant to be super simple. It is a markdown document that has text. It has a couple different fields that you have to do, otherwise the CI will complain. And it has a little bit of structure at the top, which is what things does it apply to, when did I do my review, who did it, and what my recommendation was. And this is like safe, unsafe, or like it depends. And hopefully there are more like things not in the it depends, because that doesn't help too much. And then so this data just gets sucked into here and becomes this. So this is it's a clone and a parse and a upload to the database, so it's quick, but it's all sourced from here. So what I would like to do, and I don't think that the two projects need to go out at exactly the same time, but as I said, we have hundreds and hundreds of these that we would like to make public, and going forward, we would like our the ones that, as we do them, especially the ones that aren't sensitive, I guess, we just immediately make public. I think that helps us scale, that helps everybody else. If you guys are doing it, it will help you scale. There's still some open questions about, what's the bar and how do you ensure quality and what happens when people disagree. And if you have 3 different reviews by 3 different companies, all saying different things, like who's the arbiter? and I think we can work out all of those issues going forward. But again, I think it's important to get something out, and I think this is a unique, unique offering that I think provides value. So, thoughts?
Well, this is a new one. I like the idea. I have to admit, when you're saying how do you arbitrate, you might find it easier just provide them all. I'd rather have 3 different ones who disagree than the 0, which is what I usually end up with.
Yep.
But I suspect that it's going to be all sorts of complications in terms of what gets accepted and so on. But I still think this is I think a good idea. I presume where would this live?
I would imagine this would be a separate repo on OSSF.
Okay.
So I was imagining this as just, right now it's in mine, but I'll just remote it over and and push and we're done. I do have some text here on what I was thinking about, but
yeah, I have the same question as David, which is, can this really show up, let's say, in the package manager page, where you are actually getting that package? If it can show, and I think Dan can comment here too, we actually talk to different package manager folks like PyPy, so we could think of maybe integrating it somewhere, because that's where people would be downloading the package, right? So
absolutely.
I dropped a link here into the chat too, and there's a sort of similar effort. I'd say it's tangential, not really the same thing. I called CREV or CREV. It was set up for Rust, but it's not really Rust specific. It's the same idea, but they kind of tackled it from a completely different side. Instead of telling people what to review and sharing the reviews, they kind of built this cryptographic attestation mechanism for publishing the reviews and making sure that the people who kind of security on those markdown files themselves, so that you can actually check if Microsoft says that they did this review, that it was signed by some key from Microsoft kind of thing. So more like the technical aspects of sharing and trusting the reviews themselves rather than what goes into the review.
Yeah, got it.
But yes, and I think their model can apply at the file level and the package level and even the individual PR level. But yeah, I really think there's kind of crowdsourcing these reviews is important, and somebody should do it.
Yeah.
But you mentioned PyPy or somebody mentioned PyPy or NPM and so on. If we can eventually get this metrics.openssf.org and it pulls in these reviews, and then on PyPy you say, hey, you want to learn more about security, click here, and it jumps to the metrics.openssf.org page, which includes those reviews as well as metrics and so on.
Yeah.
That would make that really easy to see, or very easy. It would make it very, very easy to get that information.
Yeah, I like that approach. I think it's, ultimately it's, again, because I like this idea or this scenario that I'm interested in is this gating scenario. So if I'm an organization, any organization, I happen to be Microsoft, but any organization, and it really would be convenient if there's just one location I can go to or one API I can use to get information about projects or packages or whatever.
Yeah, and so there's no reason why we couldn't be the so the same way that, and I was looking for the one of the package managers goes out to Sonatype looking for license info. There's no reason why the package managers couldn't all be invited to query us for the review content and then say, oh, there have been 2 reviews of this. Click here to go to the to the page or whatever.
Yeah, I guess it could work both ways.
Yeah.
So they could query us and we could ask them to provide data to us as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and in fact, I think it'll be a lot easier to get people to join with this. The more the merrier, where we pull in data and we provide links off to them, and if they pull in different data, that actually increases the likelihood they'll want to come here because, oh, this is where I can find the other information.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep. I think this is also so one of the problems that we've had is, well, not problems, sure, challenges, whatever, it has been, given a pool of money, how do we spend that pool efficiently to get good security work done? I think security reviews are one of those areas where we've been pretty successful in the past at contracting out, like, here's 100 NPM projects. Here's what I want you to do for each of them. Come back with the results. And it's been relatively easy to get to kind of make that kind of work done. So if we had the top 1,000 projects in each ecosystem, it wouldn't be insane to think that we could get those all done in a relatively short amount of time, given some funding and contractors and stuff. So it doesn't need to, what I'm afraid of with this is that we start out and it's the, come to a party and bring food, but everybody thinks somebody else is bringing food and there's no food. So
now we're talking about an overlap or an intersection with what's happening in the securing critical projects.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And maybe this is the output of some of that, as some of these some of these critical projects are validated, that knowledge is then codified in a review that can then be.
Michael, that idea does seem very nice, which is reviewing a package by different companies. But then when it comes to an open source platform like OpenSSF, I think there might be an issue in verifying or trusting the party who's providing the review. Meaning, how do we trust the reviewer?
Yeah, that's where I'd love to get some folks from the Intoto project involved in this. So
yeah. So I think that might become a challenge, but otherwise it does sound like a very nice idea, because this is a very common and similar problem in LinkedIn, which is people can claim that they were an employee of any company, and there's no way of verifying. So it might turn out to be a similar problem here also.
Yeah.
I think that's the aspect the CREV or CREV project tried to tackle. I think it's kind of like a chicken and egg thing where they tackled the technical aspects of how to figure out who did the review and stuff, but they didn't actually get anybody doing the reviews, where Michael's approach is kind of coming the other way, and let's just get people doing reviews first, bringing food to the dinner.
Right. And we can get better over time.
I think there might be one way, which is, at least personally, I think it looks very nice. So something which let's encrypt it. So they do a DNS validation for that special path, right? I mean, they have that DNS validation. They make a HTTP call to a path, and we should have the records ready. Now we already trust domains based on the certificates, the stat, etc., whatever is provided. So if it is being verified by any company with an online presence, a DNS validation could be a solution, saying yes, this was provided by us.
Oh yeah. So when somebody submits a pull request and says this is from,
Microsoft.
Mike at Microsoft.com, you're like, is it really? So you email Mike at Microsoft and say, hey, did you submit this review? And I say, yep. And then it's validated.
Correct.
Yeah, yes, I agree. Something there. We could also do like it gets some sort of provisional status until somebody else gives it a thumbs up too, and we could do all sorts of.
I was not referring to an email. I was referring to a DNS validation.
I wonder if we can. Yeah, let's note that. And I'm sorry to move us along, but we have just a few minutes left, and I'm really excited about this project, and I would like to include it in our upcoming press release. And so that means we need to think about, okay, what needs to happen, ahead of including it in the press release. So David asked about, where do we, I think it'd be great if there's something that we're comfortable letting people see, and maybe we mark it clearly as alpha, but we have an alpha site up, and we announce that in the press release. Is that Michael? We had exchanged email, just a quick email over the holidays, and I think that's something that you were interested in as well. Thoughts from others, maybe David, on what we need to do. I know we need to think about, what's the URL, where we expose it. If we do use metrics.openssf.org, I think it's very easy. That's what I had a conversation with Lindsay earlier about that. I think that'd be pretty easy to bring up. I also did get another domain name that we could use, which is the awesome domain name. Anyway, so there's the question of location, but maybe we should just kind of jot down what things we need to do ahead of to feel like it's ready to be included in a press release.
Sorry, which piece were you talking about specifically? The dashboard or the markdown code review stuff?
Oh, well, good question. I guess I was thinking the dashboard first, but we actually, if Michael, if you were ready to contribute, I might want to wait on the code review until because there might be other, it's great that it'd be Microsoft providing something, but we might want to do it with a few other companies if we think there are others that want to participate. So,
yep.
Yeah, and to be honest, I this is the first time I've heard about this review stuff. I think this is fantastic promise, but I also think there's much that needs to be discussed that we're not going to have done by the 15th.
Right.
So I think in some ways I don't want to use that shot for something that's still pretty early. Mm-hmm. So I would say hold the powder on that one, because that one's very much worth its own thing, and I would want it to be a little more baked before putting in a press release. That said, I am excited about it. As far as the metrics goes, I don't know what the bar is whatever we think it is for putting in a press release. Michael has officially demonstrated it, right, to the working group. So as far as, hey, if you want to put in the press release that we've already demonstrated the metrics, we can check that box as of today. It would be awesome to have a website that people would actually see the thing. I honestly not sure you're ready by the 15th, but that's up to you, I guess.
So the website itself is public. What it needs, obviously, is a landing page and something to say, like, what am I looking at, right, and all of that. So what I would imagine is a page at OpenSSF, so metrics.openssf.org takes to a home page which says, hey, this is what the metrics project is. Click here to view the dashboard, and then it goes to something like this. And what we can do is we can also clean this up so that the only projects we have in there are things that we have like good complete-ish data for. So we make sure that people's first viewing of it is, that they are wowed.
Yeah, I'm looking at the date. It's January 6th. I hate to overpromise in a press release. I think it would be okay in a press release to say that we've had an early demonstration of the metrics dashboard to allow people to see various data, security data, and we're working on turning into a website and such like that. I hate to try to press that in just a few days. I don't. My experience has been, those little details turn out to take more time than you expect.
Yeah, yeah. I think your hesitation is probably good there. So,
damn the torpedoes.
The thing is, I think that we can put something in the press release, but yes. I just don't. I'm hesitant to. I would suggest wait.
Hesitant to have the website, to have the
right. It's the website dashboard. I'm hesitant about, not telling people, because you've got a dashboard, right? You got it. I mean, we can improve it. I think but I think that there's some metrics that should be replaced. I think there's some changes, but gracious. But I think that we could say something about you've demonstrated an early version, and we're going to turn it into a website, and then declare victory as far as a press release goes, because people are interested in that. Will then know that that's coming.
Yeah, and then we could link to, so what we could link to is the page that has more information about the project and how people can get involved.
So if we got metrics.openssf.org through a basic landing page there that said, I don't know, enter your email address and we'll contact you when we launch, or, get a couple screenshots and I think coming soon, then that we should definitely be able to do that quickly.
We could do that, yeah.
And then it's just a matter of replacing that with the content and notifying people. And so Kay, do you know when the next press release after January would be?
In April. So
Perfect.
It's every quarter. Yeah.
So then April would be a good time to announce the dashboard is now publicly available and we've worked out all the kinks. And if we could do the security reviews at the same time.
Yeah, and I have to admit, I haven't seen many press releases in January that have a lot. Most people aren't doing a lot of work at the end of December to announce in January. So I think you've done quite a lot in quite a short time. So I think delaying a lot of the goodies to April is just fine.
Yeah. Yeah, so we can focus on just announcing the project, and then we can say that it's been demonstrated. We can talk about the goals, and then here's how you can find out more or participate. So
cool. Okay, so let's make sure we don't lose the. We do need to get the domain. That's important.
Yeah. So
we have OpenSSF.org. So
right, we just need the metrics.
Yeah, we just need to create that.
Right.
I don't know if it is important, but if we want to add a user login or collect user data like token and similar, maybe we need to be compliant to GDPR in the European Union. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
Do we need to collect email addresses right now? I'm not sure we need
I
to.
don't think so. Yeah.
If there's any, let's just not then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a reminder.
Yeah, just frankly, if you wanted to, creating a page with a couple links and saying what this is going to be about, so that the search engines, particularly Google, discover it and it starts getting links. Because my experience has been, you spend a lot of work creating something, and then you spend the next couple of years trying to get people to hear about it. So having a page that you can get people to start linking to now, and then working the content simultaneously might not be a bad plan.
Yeah. Michael, let's talk offline, but we should just loop Lindsay in.
Yeah.
And she can help us get a page up, and then we should get together the content that we want on the page, and then also start reviewing that with. We want to make sure that this is visible before we do it. We want to make sure it's visible to the TAC members and also to the governing board. So, but Lindsay and I can help shepherd through that.
Perfect.
Okay.
Cool.
All right.
Awesome. Final question for the security reviews. Is there anybody else on this call that would like to be part of the core team of making this real? And what I mean by that is cool, David, you're in.
I would.
What I need, I think what our most important thing on the biggest rock that we need to get over is I need another large organization to commit to, I am going to do X number of reviews and contribute them, or I have already done X and I will contribute them. But but it has to be the like who's actually bringing like soda to this party.
LF hasn't done the hundreds and thousands, but we've got a couple.
If you, I will take it.
Yep.
And I'm gonna push on Dan and Kim to see if we can get Google to commit a couple or commit, a lot. And anybody else is welcome as well. Cool. Anything else before we wrap up? Wonderful. Thank you all very much. Happy New Year, and looking forward to our next meeting on the, wait, sorry, before I leave, the next meeting is going to be like the 18th, I think. If that's super bad for anybody.
Is that like Martin Luther King Day or something?
I don't know if it's the day or the observed day, because my kids have off from school on like the Friday and the Monday. So if it's a bad day, just ping me and we'll reschedule, but otherwise I'll keep it on. Awesome. Thank you all very much. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.